We're gonna go way back to Africa. And we're gonna speak in our native tongue of Swahili. Baba means father. It means protector. Can everybody say Baba? Can everybody say Baba? Come on, put your hands together. Hallelujah.
The Centers for Disease Control estimate that more than 1 million people in the United States are living with HIV. The Metropolitan Interdenominational Church Technical Assistance Network has responded to a rise in HIV among African Americans by focusing on black churches and faith leaders. Let's welcome Ulysses W. Burley III, a member of St. Stephen's Lutheran Church and clinical research fellow at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. We also welcome Reverend Frederick Shells, Director of HIV/AIDS Awareness and Prevention at City Lights Community Outreach Corporation and Associate Pastor at Pleasant Green Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago. We also welcome Sylvia Jo Oglesby, founder of the Clergy Leadership Summit for HIV and AIDS Community Outreach and founder and director of Inglewood Advocates of Grace for Lives, Education and Service. Welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. Reverend, could you start us off by framing this conversation for us that's happening inside the, in the ministries and the kind of communities of faith inside the African American community?
The issue of HIV and AIDS with reference to the church and the black church in particular is one that we have kind of had a blind eye towards the issue of HIV and AIDS with reference to the black church. There's been no talk from a congregational perspective about HIV and AIDS. Nobody came in and said, hey, we need to do this or we need to do that. It's all been silent. With reference to primarily because of the silence is that it was believed that HIV and AIDS was an issue of the gay homosexual community, first of all, and that it had nothing to do with the church. Well, that has changed. History has changed the course. It is now more of a heterosexual problem and an issue in the community as a whole than it is for the other side of town.
Ms. Oglesby, how have you seen this issue inside of the African American community, more specifically the African American community of faith, change throughout your work and through your work?
Well, actually my work began in the church through the Black Methodist organization many years ago, where a number of our men realized that the church needed to address this issue. And so they applied for a grant from the AIDS Foundation of Chicago. And I ended up as the director of that organization and having the responsibility to make sure that the churches developed programs to address HIV/AIDS. And so that was the beginning. And we had a number of people trained as HIV/AIDS instructors through the Red Cross. And we were able to get at least, I think, 5 or 6 programs established. Those churches are still functioning in their HIV/AIDS ministries. Then we went to a broader perspective by dealing with the community and reaching out into the community and connecting with other organizations that are doing the work. And what we realized is that while the churches are slowly taking up responsibility for addressing HIV/AIDS, much more is being done now than was done before.
How have a younger generation of church leaders addressed this problem, addressed this issue, or changed the conversation or the tone of the conversation in the African American communities of faith?
You know, it's really about bridging the gap. And often in the church there have been installations in place for many years. Things have been done the same way. People have served in their capacities forever. And this issue, more or less, of HIV and AIDS, which is a relatively new issue, was not the issue of the general population of the church 30 years ago when they were young people. And so HIV and AIDS has always been a part of my life, has always been a part of my psyche. Mm-hmm. And so one of the initiatives that young people need to do is to try to bridge the gap with the more mature, with the more established members in the church, and to let them know that this is not just a young person's issue. This is a human issue. Right. This is all of our issues. Right. And so in that effort, we've really been trying to integrate generations. Right. And really work together and educate each other on this epidemic that affects all of us.
Mm-hmm. And when talking about HIV/AIDS, it's a very closely related conversation to talk about how issues of sexual diversity have been addressed or not in African American communities of faith. How has that kind of topic and issue been integrated into the conversation of addressing HIV and AIDS in communities of faith?
It's very difficult in the church. Because you don't have that conversation. Not in most black churches that I've been to anyway. Not even in my church. We don't speak in terms of MSNs and LGBTs and transgender sexes. We don't. We speak in terms of heterosexual, but certainly the symposiums that we've been attending, put on by the Metropolitan Interdenominational Church, has, how shall I say, bridged the gap for me anyway, that avenue of conversation. In other words, it's made a way that I could cross over, and now it has sparked my interest in reaching out to MSNs and people of likeness. How is it that you're existing, and where are you worshiping? And I don't care what you do when you're alone and by yourself or with someone else. It's what you do when you're out in the open, and you need the care that I can give spiritually. And that we can provide as a church community. That's what I'm concerned with people. The whosoever, compassion and kindness, and reaching out to them is what my concern is right now.
Ms. Oglesby, can you kind of talk to a little bit about that whosoever movement and how it's affected your work in the communities of faith?
Well, I am driven. I have no choice. I consider that I'm a nuisance, and I get on everyone's nerves, but I do not stop sending out the message that the truth is that Jesus Christ calls us to be the church to all people. He calls us to love one another. It means that we cannot look at a person's actions. We have to just accept them and love them unequivocally, and just do just what he did, because he was the model for us, and that's what we need to do. It doesn't matter how you behave, but we want to help you learn how to behave with less risk involved, and we want to really focus on the bottom line, which is saving lives.
Dr. Burley, how have you and your work kind of brought that message of inclusion and tolerance, and that, hey, there's a healthier way to live your lifestyle? Right. In terms of both managing your disease and staying disease-free, whatever your choices you make.
Right. It started for me when I was in college at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and at the time I was the president of the Atlanta University Center Public Health Association. And at the time, Atlanta had one of the highest incidents of HIV and AIDS in the country. And so, of course, that was one of our main goals in order to educate and advocate. And then a few years later, I went on to do a study abroad program in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I worked with the principal AIDS Foundation there, the Fundación Huésped. And basically, I was in and out of about 4 different public hospitals, and we were seeing HIV patients. It really changed my life. It really changed my perspective. I made friends there. I really was able to connect with their situation and their story, and it really kind of opened up my eyes so that when I returned here, I kind of had a different focus. And I knew that I really had to minister in terms of whosoever.
Thank you, Ms. Oglesby, Reverend Shells, Dr. Burley, all for being here and
Thank you.
sharing your point of view with us.
Thank you.
I'm Bo River. For Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries, keep the faith.
Thank you for tuning in to Inspirational Moments with Pastor Kelcy G.L.Steele. I'm the pastor of the First A.M.E. Zion Church, Los Angeles, 1449 West Adams Boulevard. For more than 3 decades, the fight against the spread of HIV and AIDS in the black community have been an uphill battle. Thousands of lives have been lost, families have been torn apart, dreams have been scattered, and the burden of this disease remains on our shoulders, with almost half of all new HIV cases appearing in the black community. It was Bishop John Bryant who said the black church is the only institution that has loved our people from the cradle to the grave. We loved them through slavery, through poverty, and through racism. We cannot make HIV the exception to our love. As the mother institution, we must love our people through the valley of HIV. The black church has been and continue to be a powerful instrument of support, comfort, and inspiration in our community. Unfortunately, injustice against the black community have become the fabrics of our experience. Nevertheless, what spurred the civil rights movement was our community waking up and saying, we are no longer going to sit back and be quiet. That was the framework within which the black church and the black community decided to take action during the civil rights movement. Today, the message is the same. We as faith leaders can no longer sit back and be quiet. We have to become the conscience of the movement towards equality, starting with health equality. Check out this clip, The Black Church Imperative.
This is God's message. Attend to matters of justice. 1.2 million people in the United States are living with HIV. For years, blacks have been the most impacted by the disease. Think this doesn't affect you? Black men make up 11% of the U.S. population, but represent 42% of the new male HIV infections. This is God's message. Attend to matters of justice. 1.2 million people in the United States are living with HIV. For years, blacks have been the most impacted by the disease. Think this doesn't affect you? Black men make up 11% of the U.S. population, but represent 42% of the new male HIV infections.
As you see, this is a serious subject, but we're happy to have with us today Gerald from the Black AIDS Institute. Gerald, it's good to have you on today.
Thank you, Reverend Steele.
Gerald, will you please take some time to introduce yourself?
Sure. Again, thank you for being here, for having me here, rather. I'm Gerald Garth. I'm with the Black AIDS Institute, which is based in Los Angeles. We were founded in 1999 under our CEO and President Phil Wilson, who saw the impact and saw the necessity of having efforts to fight the spread of HIV in our communities. And I'm also here with the Black Treatment Advocates Network, which is a collaborative that brings communities that are directly connected to blacks and how we can use those as a means to continue to fight the spread of HIV.
Amen. I heard that it's estimated that there are between 800,000 to 900,000 people living with HIV in the U.S. Is that correct?
Right, and many of these numbers are estimated because a lot of people don't know they're living with HIV. So it's assumed that there's anywhere between 900,000 and 1.2 million people living with HIV, and about 62,000 of those people don't know their status. And to bring it more closer to home, there are about 62,800 living with HIV in LA, and about 13,500 don't know their status. So a large part of preventing the spread is to know your status.
That is very, very deep. So it's very important that we as people should get tested and to know our status. Well, this weekend you came by my church and you did such a powerful presentation. Can you share with us today some information as it pertains to HIV and the black community and as it relates to the black church?
Yes, sir. Thank you. As you said, the black church has always been a cornerstone in the black community. And so to use the black church as a resource, as it's always been to our people, to come against this disease and the stigma related around it is definitely powerful. So thank you for the opportunity to come. And also hinged upon the tale of the National Week of Prayer for the healing of HIV, which was March 1st through March 8th. This is an opportunity for churches and houses of faith to bring recognition and prayer around those affected and infected with HIV. And so just to recap some of the highlights from the presentation Saturday, we at BTAN have created a committee within that network entitled the Faith and Spirituality Committee. And this committee was started because we realized that within the black community, as you stated, the black church is one of the most powerful institutions within the black community. And so we talked about just how the black church can be more impactful within the fight against HIV. And so some of those highlights include getting educated. There are a number of stigma and discrimination that happens because people don't necessarily know the facts. There's many opportunities for the black church to educate our people around how to protect yourself, how HIV is transmitted, and how to take the best care of yourself if you are positive. Also getting involved. The black church has always been a footprint in the black community. And so when the black church gets on board for the healing of our people, then change happens. You mentioned some issues that the black church has been impactful in overcoming, and we do feel that the church's involvement can be a continued success in overcoming HIV. Also getting tested. If you are negative, knowing your status to protect your negative status is important. Also, if you are positive, there has been advances and there are continued advances in how to live a healthy, prosperous life and to protect those people who are connected to you. And lastly, getting treated. Like I said, there is a continuum of care that works for your lifestyle to make sure that you live the most effective and healthy life. So the black church can be a continued effort in the healing of our people in that respect.
All right, so getting educated, getting tested, and getting treatment.
Correct.
Well, Gerald, why do you feel that the black church has a fear of talking about HIV and AIDS?
Well, to answer that, many times people fear or demonize what they don't understand. Throughout history, people have made things that they don't understand to be a monster. And that goes back to how important the education piece is. Once we know how things work and what things are and what things do, we can more effectively handle them. And we think about even the disease itself. If you don't know how it's transmitted, then you can't protect yourself from transmission. If you don't know your status, then you can't help either protect your negative status or prevent transmission. So a big part of that in the black church is being educated. And so we all at the church, we use Jesus Christ himself as our example. And so we reference Jesus all the time being a friend to the friendless and touching those who were deemed unclean or working with the people who were most oppressed or most isolated. And so in this respect and in this day and age, we should model Jesus Christ and being that advocate and being that that conduit of faith and love.
Okay. And to my understanding, still there is no cure for AIDS.
Correct. There's officially no cure for HIV at this point. There have been several advances within the last several years. There are a number of treatments. One more recently is called pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP for short, and it is actually a form of medication that a HIV negative individual will take to protect him or herself should he or she be put at risk of HIV. So this medicine would actually be taken before you were possibly exposed to HIV. There's also a regimen that's called post-exposure prophylaxis. And so if you had involved in some at-risk behavior and feel that you were put at risk of HIV, there's a regimen of medicine that you can take to reduce your risk of acquiring. So there's a pre-exposure that would protect you before you might have been exposed, and there's a post-exposure that could protect you should you have already been exposed. And also, even though there's not a cure as of now, we have the tools to reduce transmission, and we have the tools to reduce acquiring the disease. And so using the tools and methods we have now to, if you are negative, reduce your chances of transmitting, and if you are negative, reduce your transmission of acquiring. And so to use these tools together, we could actually stop HIV. But again, this goes to knowing what's available, knowing how to use them, and having the people who work with us be accountable to us.
That's very interesting with the vaccine and the medicine. And from my understanding, if there is a HIV positive partner, and then there's a HIV negative partner, the negative partner can take a medication that will prevent them from getting the disease? That's correct.
That's correct. It's actually FDA approved. It is some records show that it is up to 98% effective. It is actually available for men and women. So there are interventions available that can keep us protected and keep us well.
That's powerful. I read the fact sheet about HIV, and it says no matter if you are black, white, rich, poor, straight, or gay, if you engage in certain behaviors, you place yourself at risk from becoming HIV infected. Well, why do a lot of people feel that HIV is automatically associated or is being perpetuated by the gay community?
That's a good question. In the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, it was very much more saturated amongst the white gay community, and there are a number of reasons why that ideal sort of stayed throughout time. As you know, though, that over the last 30 or so years, the disease has shifted in its incidence and prevalence from being just, quote, a white gay man's disease to where blacks are most impacted. And so many of what was seen in the beginning around the spread of HIV before it was recognized, before it was identified and studied, we saw, or the studies and the records saw a lot more prevalence. And of course the media portrayed a lot more of those incidents around white gay men, but it's definitely not a white gay man's disease. And as we mentioned earlier, blacks are definitely much more impacted. And there are a number of reasons why we see such impact still around black communities. There are a number of disparities that blacks are more affected by, which continue to. That's why we continue to see the spread of HIV. It's not that blacks are engaging in more risky behavior, but there are just a number of factors that affect black behaviors in black community. For example, poverty. There's a number of risks and activities involved with poverty that directly correlate to the spread of HIV. And so we see rather that HIV is more entrenched in our communities because of a number of societal factors, not necessarily blacks being more risky.
Because I understand that blacks make up 12% of the U.S. population, but represent over 50% of all of the HIV infections. And nearly 185,000 blacks have died of AIDS in the U.S. Is that correct?
Correct. So as you said, if you can imagine those numbers, that if blacks are only 14% of the nation, but account for nearly half of the new infections, that lets us know we need to look at something outside of just the disease itself. And so issues are like poverty, access to health care, not knowing your status, living with other diseases as well, or not being trustworthy of the medical system. There's a number of factors that go well beyond just HIV itself. But yes, just as you said, that blacks are disproportionately affected, and so that gives people who are in this fight opportunity to look at what else is happening to why we see so much more HIV in our communities.
And then it says that black women represent 72% of new HIV infections among women in the United States. But catch this, black youth between the ages of 13 and 19 represent 65% of the reported AIDS cases among youth in 2002, even though they're only 15% of the U.S. population. But this is the catch, and I want you to talk a little bit on it. It says black Americans have the poorest AIDS survival rate of all racial and ethnical groups. Why?
Right. So as you mentioned, black men, black women, black youth, that's black people all together. So the question should be asked, what's happening in black communities that either aren't happening in other communities or are being addressed in other communities that are not within black communities? And so again, to go to a number of issues that are related or are directly related to the black communities, access to health care is definitely a big issue. We know now with the rising of the Affordable Care Act and some advances in different cities and states, but also even knowing how to navigate these new tools. And again, that takes us back to the education piece. So if we have a new tool, but we don't know how to use the tool is still ineffective as it relates to the people. And so we see that in a large number of our disproportionate rates. Testing, we hear a lot around testing, but a large part of why HIV is spreading so much is because people don't know their status. And when people are within the same group or within the same community, that's more opportunity for transmission. And so, knowing your status, protecting your status. Also, many times when you talked about the survival rate, many times when people are diagnosed later in a later stage of HIV, that can lead to a less survival rate or a lower survival rate. And so the sooner you know your status, the sooner you can go on treatment, the sooner you can, and the more you can strengthen and protect your immune system. So what we want to see when it comes to medical interventions is that the medicines stop, or rather reduce, the virus in your blood or reduce the virus in your system. So the sooner you're on treatment, the sooner you can keep the virus from spreading and multiplying and replicating. And so as it goes back to testing, the sooner the better, because the sooner you can know your status, the sooner you can protect it and protect yourself. And so just again, as it relates to our communities, we, not only as the church, but just as entities connected to the community, should look for these opportunities in how we can continue to educate and strengthen our people and help us to make better decisions as it relates to our overall health. Because, if you're hungry or homeless, or, if you're dealing with some mental issue, it's a lot harder to take care of your physical health.
All right. Gerald, we thank you for stopping by to engage in this conversation. It's very much needed. And our prayers are with your the Black AIDS Institute, and anything that we can help you in the future, please reach out to us.
Yes, thank you so much, Reverend Steele. And just to let the listeners know that the Black Treatment Advocates Network meets every third Tuesday at the Black AIDS Institute here in Los Angeles at 1833 West 8th Street, Suite 200. We have a number of activities that are happening throughout the rest of the year that really bring awareness, prevention, education. So there are great opportunities to get involved here with the Black Treatment Advocates Network and the Black AIDS Institute. So to find out more, you can go to blackaids.org. to find out how you can get involved in LA or your city throughout the country.
Amen. Thank you so much. In all of thy getting, get understanding. Number one, you need to get informed. What you don't know can kill you. Number two, you need to get tested. Number three, you need to get treated. And number four, you need to get involved. And we thank you today for tuning in to Inspirational Moments with Pastor Kelcy G.L.Steele. You can check us out online, The Pastor Steele Show Incorporated. Join us on Facebook, The Pastor Steele Show. Hit us on Twitter The Pastor Steele. See you next week, same time, 12:30 p.m., same place, rmcgospel.com, same host, the Reverend Kelcy G.L.Steele.
Come on. We're going to go way back to Africa. We're going to speak in our native tongue of Swahili. Baba means father. It means protector. Can everybody say Baba? Can everybody say Baba? Come on, put your hands together. Hallelujah.